Hi, everybody. Welcome to the weekend edition of Proline. This is where we all get together, talk about some great games. We've got two really big-time college basketball matchups to look at, and we will also go inside the Packers-Bears battle for the NFC title and one of the spots in this year's Super Bowl. Before we get rolling with the analysis, Big Al continues to roll along, and I should introduce everybody. Jim Feist is here, Al McMorty, Scott Spreitzer, my name is Dave Koken, and Big Al has just been tearing it up, and he continues to do so. And Al, you're going to offer something with both football and basketball for the viewers this weekend.
That's right, Ted. You know, our Vegas Strip moves got off to that 14-0 start this football season, never looked back. Hit about 80% when all was said and done this season. So what we're going to do on the last big football weekend of the NFL year, we're going to do a football-basketball two-step, and we're going to give out Saturday and Sunday's Vegas Strip move plays in both football and basketball, absolutely free to all callers. You can call toll-free 866-896-1628. You get NBA, college basketball, and NFL, our big, famous Vegas Strip move plays, absolutely free to all callers, 866-896-1628.
That sounds good, Al.
So let's talk about this.
Well, let's get right into Villanova and Syracuse. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah. You know, Dave, this is a series dominated by the road team. Point spread wins in 20 of the last 29 meetings, but the road team is just 4-3 against the spread when installed as an underdog versus a home team off a straight-up loss. That's the situation here. Syracuse coming into this ballgame off that loss earlier in the week to Pittsburgh. This is a game that I've got reasons to take both sides. But really when it comes down to it, Dave, the last thing I want to do is go against Syracuse off that loss at home in the Carrier Dome. Chris Joseph is going to be back for this ball game. I'll give a shaky nod to the Orange minus the points and look for them to resume their winning ways. They, of course, opened the season with 18 straight wins. I'm going to take Syracuse, but it's a very shaky nod here, Dave.
Well, you know, it's tough to lay points in the Big East. I mean, it just really is. But the more I look at Villanova, you know, Jay Wright's an outstanding basketball coach, and this team's going to be hanging around come March Madness. But I don't think it's a team that's poised for a deep run. You know, in the paint, they're kind of an ordinary basketball team, and I don't think their guard play is as strong as it was last year. When I did my preseason stuff on Nova, I thought they would be able to compensate without too much difficulty for the loss of Scotty Reynolds, who, you know, was a really intangible guy more than anything else. Good player, talented, but kind of a tweener in a sense, and I thought more of an intangible guy than a really gifted player. And I think that's turned out to be right from this standpoint. I don't think the intangible leadership has been in evidence on this team. They're still looking for an identity, if you will. Syracuse gets their top scorer back here. No problem at all with me seeing them lose to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's legit this year. They could be a Final Four team. Syracuse a notch below that, but they're still very good. The big guy hasn't really developed the way they want him to at Syracuse. That happens sometimes with big guys, but he's going to be good down the road. But tell you what, the Orange are tough. That zone's tough, and I'm not sure about Nova shooting against the zone. Scott, I'm going to go with Syracuse as well. It's not a strong call. I don't think there's any possibility that I'll actually bet the game. But for purposes of the discussion, I would side with the Orange here at home.
Yeah, I'm falling in line with both of you guys and everything you've said so far. I mean, Pittsburgh, I think Jamie Dixon has his best team ever, and I'll go on record saying that. So losing at Pittsburgh is nothing to be ashamed of. And it was such an odd game. You know, first of all, Cuse didn't have their leading scorer, as you guys have already mentioned. They've had a few days now, though, off after falling behind in that game, 19-0 to start that contest. They actually came back, Syracuse did, against Pitt and tied it at 41 with a real nice run of their own with about 13 minutes to go in the game. But it took a lot of energy, and they were shorthanded. They expended a lot of energy to get back to even and never quite could get over the top. And we're talking about a Syracuse team now that held 4 straight opponents to less than 60 points before that game against Pitt, and in fact held 9 of their previous 12 opponents under 60 points. They're fifth in the nation, guys, in field goal percentage allowed, about 37.5%. That includes 28.5% from behind the arc. As you mentioned, Dave, it's a zone defense that's really been extended a little bit further this year. They're going to get after the ball handlers with that nasty extended zone. So really, Malik Wayans for Nova is going to face one heck of a test on Saturday, one of his toughest, I think, tests that he's going to face all season. And the Orange, they're 6-1 against the spread following a straight-up loss. How about 10-1 against the spread in their last 11 at home against teams with a win percentage of more than 600? Like you guys, it's not going to be a play where I'm going to empty out any money out of my wallet to pluck down on the Orange, but for the sake of the show, that's the way I've got to go in this one. I'd say lay the points with Syracuse or stay away from the game, Jim.
Well, those stats that you brought up, Scott, were stats that I was looking at as well. Definitely 10-1 the last 11 home games against a team with a winning record of 60% or higher. They've gone under the last 12 games. 9 out of the last 12 games they've gone under. But Villanova, on the other hand, is an over team. They're 13-5 this year. In the last 18 road games, I should say. We should talk about what the line will be. If the game is 4, you might want to lay it. But if it's 6 or 7, which is very possible. When you look at the Syracuse at home this year, they were 8 over Cincinnati, 7.5 over Seton Hall. What are they going to be in this game? 6, 7, 8? What do you think?
No chance to be that high, Jim. They're going to be 4 points.
Yeah, I think it's 4.
That's what I mean.
Well, if it's 4, you got to look to lay it because they're just too strong at home. But if you start getting up over 6, and you never know. But I agree, especially with Joseph possibly being hurt, you're probably looking at the lower number 4. But if he doesn't play or he plays ineffectively, that's a lot to lose out of the lineup. 14 points a game, 5.5 rebounds. That's tough to overcome. So to me, it comes down to the line, and I'd lay the 4. I'd probably take anything 6 or above.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 4-2-5. I think Syracuse money will probably show in this game. We'll have to wait and see. Look, this next game, we'll move from the Big East to the Big 12. And this is a really good game. Texas and Kansas is a terrific matchup. Before we get to that game, let's go to Smash Mouth Sports analyst Scott Spreitzer. And Scott, what do you got cooking this weekend for everybody?
It's been a tremendous week, Dave. Last time we were here, we talked about attempting to win our 8th straight 3-pack in college basketball. We did that, and then we won our 9th straight last night. We're 20-7 with the 27 sides that have been included in those 3-packs, and we're also still on that red-hot road warrior wipeout run in college basketball, going 7-1 with the last 8, 24-9 now with our last 33, and we're going to wrap it up all into one big bundle this weekend. It's a Smash Mouth bundle package, if you will. We're going to have our next college basketball 3-pack as we look to make it 10 straight winning 3-packs going on Saturday. Our Road Warrior Wipeout Game of the Year goes on Saturday slate. That's part of the package. And I'm going to include my NFL Conference Championship Game of the Year, which of course goes on Sunday. That's the matchup in the AFC between the Jets and Pittsburgh. And it's all going to be available for just a flat $20. And you're talking about having to spend, if you purchase these plays online, over $150. You make the call to Smash Mouth Sports. You get it all for $15. The toll-free number to call, 1-866. I think I said 15. I meant $20. It's $20. 1-866-896-1627. That's 1-866-896-1627. Just ask for the Smash Mouth bundle, a Road Warrior Wipeout Game of the Year, college basketball 3-pack, and my AFC Conference Championship Game of the Year, all available right now at Smash Mouth Sports. Don't miss out. I'm looking for another great weekend in both college basketball and the NFL, guys.
Well, one game that just should be outstanding is this Big 12 hookup between the Longhorns and Jayhawks. We know Kansas is, there's no question they're one of the better teams out there. And Texas, Scott, this Finley prep connection working out pretty well for Rick Barnes. He's mined the Las Vegas prep scene pretty well for a couple of outstanding players. The Texas has not done well in conference play against the spread. That's going back several games, like 6-20 or something like that in their last 26. But boy, they sure look good the other night against Texas A&M. Really solid performance against a good Aggie team. You think they're maybe which team do you think is turning the corner here and getting set to make a big run?
I'll answer that in just a moment, Dave, but I wish Barnes would have mined Las Vegas a little bit harder and got Bryce Masamba for those of us who are running Rebel fans, but unfortunately he didn't. But, the Horns have been basically money, 10-3 against the spread is their current run. They are off the big win over A&M, so they're going to have to come down a little bit from that big rivalry victory. They have the type of players on the blocks to give Kansas some trouble. We saw Nebraska hammer the Jayhawks on the glass last weekend at Fog Allen, so could be in for a bit of the same problem in this one as far as Bill Self's team. Kansas coming off an incredible shooting night in Waco. I think they started 13 of 16 from the floor and didn't miss another shot the rest of the game. Just checking to see if you guys are listening. But the thing that makes it difficult to back the Longhorns is that they can really go in the tank at the free throw line, and that's inevitably what cost them in that loss earlier this season to UConn. They went 14 for 23 from the stripe and lost the game by a point. But, they play solid on the defensive end in most games, Dave, and guys, and, they do have that unfortunate ability to disappear, though, on the defensive end for stretches in big games. They gave up 84 to Illinois, 82 to UConn. They gave up 73 to a USC team that doesn't score a lot of points, and in fact lost by 17 points to the Trojans. That's the caveat with backing Texas. They can go south from the charity stripe. They can disappear for a certain stretch of time on the defensive end. Again, this is just like the other college basketball game for me. I'm not going to have money on this contest. For the sake of the show, I'm going to lean towards Kansas. I think they put back-to-back solid games together after beating Baylor last time out.
I like the Kansas side a little bit. Pretty much the same thing. And what I'm really looking for here, I just did call it a gut feeling. I think this is the game where Selby just takes things over for Kansas. He is absolutely awesome. He missed the early part of the season. He's a one and done. I mean, there's no chance this kid's playing college basketball next year. He's going to be one of the first guys taken in the lottery. Wow, what a player he is. And I think this is one of those big stage games where the most talented guy in the court steps forward and becomes the star of the show. So I think Selby will lead Kansas to probably a 7 or 8 point win here. But Al, I do think it'll be exciting, and this is a game that, if you're going to be home this weekend, this is one you definitely want to watch. Should be a blast.
Yeah, and of course, Kansas is going to be about an 8-point favorite in this ball game, and I love Kansas here. I think it's a perfect situation for the Jayhawks. Texas comes into this ball game off 3 straight blowout wins and covers. They last 3 margins of victory: 31 points, 20 points, 21 points over the Red Raiders, Sooners, and Aggies. Now, of course, they have to face that undefeated Kansas squad. Kansas has won its first 17 games of the season. And just like I didn't want to step in front of a Syracuse team, in its own home gym on Saturday, there's no way I'm going to step in front of Kansas, especially when the road team is getting less than double digits here. And moreover, Texas falls into a real nasty situation of mine. It's a scheduling situation. This system is, going against the road team. You're 123 wins, 57 losses against the spread the past 21 seasons. And what we want to do, we go against these very strong road teams. Their win percentages of 778 or better. If they're off 3 straight wins by 14 or more points in each of those 3 games, and if the point spread range is from -5 to plus 9.5 points, and then they're also matched up against a real good opponent with a win percentage of 620 or better. That's the basic gist of the system. And it's just a bad scheduling situation for the Longhorns off those 3 big blowout wins and covers. And then Kansas, of course, they've dominated this series lately, winning 6 of the last 7 straight up. They've won and covered each of the last 3 meetings, dating all the way back to that 2008 Big 12 tournament. All 3 of those wins were by double digits. I just don't see things changing Saturday in Lawrence. I'm going to lay the points, Jim.
Ditto, Al. I mean, and the one part that we have to look at, too, is the pace of the game. Texas is coming off a very physical battle. Well, they really out-physical Texas A&M in that game, which wasn't really expected. But the series here and the way that Kansas is playing, they're 10-5 over the total. They're going to probably dictate pace here. I'm looking for this game to fly over the total. I lean to the favorite again. It's going to come down to what the line is. I don't know about laying any more than 8. That might be a little tough, but maybe Texas will get some money off that big win. But I'd like to lay a little bit less than 8 if I can.
I think we might get a little less than 8 because, Longhorns are coming on some, and they played brilliantly. They were tremendous against Texas A&M. That's a good A&M team that they beat, and beat them badly the other night. It might have been their best game of the year. So it should be fun to watch, that's for sure. I know this is going to be fun to watch. You got the Packers and the Bears, two storied rivals, and well, they've never met with more than this on the line. Before we get to that game, though, Jim Feist, world champion handicapper, and on a tear once again in the games that count in the NFL. Jim, what are you looking at this weekend for a special?
Well, I'm going to do a basketball and football two-step, I guess. Is that what you said before, Al? Something along those lines?
You can copy it.
I'm going to copy it. This is a 10-day package, 10 days of executive and inner circle winners for just $10. I mean, that's thousands of dollars worth of plays right there. That's basketball and football through the end of the month. It includes a high roller release, actually a pair of high roller releases. $1,000 worth of value right there as a free bonus. It's $10. 1-866-841-1655. Just call 1-866-841-1655 for 10 days of executive and inner circle winners for just $10. As far as this game is concerned, man, you're talking about some tough football games to handicap. There's a lot of reasons to like both sides, but one of the things I've been looking at is where the money's going. And, in sports betting, you want to be on the side of the bookmaker most of the time, not all of the time, because the squares don't win that much. But the sports books can't write a ticket on the Bears. Everything is about the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, the Packers. And the Bears only had to beat Seattle to get here, so they're not going to get much credit for that. But that's the team that showed up at their ballpark, and they had no choice of who they played. If you really want to go against the public, right now you'd have to be on the Bears. You've got to look at the Bears to try to run the ball more, keep Cutler standing up, throw the short passes, control the game. Aaron Rodgers is completing almost 80% of his passes right now. He is definitely the hottest quarterback. And the Packers are definitely the hottest team in football at the moment. A lot of things can change on Sunday afternoon. But if you want the value, you'd have to be on the Bears.
Boy, I'll tell you what, it's scary because the Packers are on an enormous roll right now. And they've been playing playoff football for the months for the past month. And I actually think that's a good thing. The flip side of it is they're doing all this on the road. And you wonder at some point if all the travel and not being able to play a home game is going to catch up with them. The Bears, so many people on the Packers here that the Bears would seem to have no pressure on them to perform in a sense, which in a title game, a game of this magnitude, is kind of remarkable. But I got to tell you, I picked the Packers to win the Super Bowl before the playoffs started. I'm not going to change my mind on that. I think they are the best team out there. So I'm staying with the Packers. My stronger play here will be on the total, to be honest with you. I don't think there's a lot of value in laying 3.5 points with Green Bay on the road. But you know what, Scott, it's gun to my head. I'm playing the Packers again. I think they're on a huge roll, and I think Cutler will make a mistake someplace that hurts the Bears. I think he's still a possibility to do that, although clearly he's playing very well. The score of last week's game with the Bears and Seahawks was completely misleading as the Bears really slaughtered them. They just mailed it into the fourth quarter once the game was wrapped up. I had a big play on the Bears in that game. I also had a big play on the Packers each of the last 2 weeks. So it's really tough for me to come up with a side here, but I would go Green Bay. How about you?
Well, we both had the Bears as a game of the year last week, and we cashed nicely. And as I said the other day to you, Dave, it was probably the biggest blowout that almost didn't cover a spread in quite some time, as Chicago completely dominated that game. But still, you had Jay Cutler, who was making bad reads at times, and if he played against a better defensive backfield, they don't cover that spread, bottom line. Of course, if they played against a different and better backfield, then I might not have had Chicago as a big play in that game. But, I can't help but remember back in that Monday Night Football game when Chicago was able to beat Green Bay 20-17, and I had had the Bears in that September Monday night game and won. And I remember afterwards watching all the talking heads on SportsCenter and such, and they're talking about this marriage between Cutler and Martz, and it's going to be incredible, and on and on. And I'm thinking, man, did they just see the same game I did? I mean, I like to brag about winning when I do, but I have to admit when I'm very fortunate, and I was very lucky to win that game with Chicago on that Monday night. I was on the wrong side, but I got the right result. Let's just put it that way. I mean, Green Bay was flagged for 18 penalties for 152 yards. They outgained Chicago 379 to 276. Cutler threw only one interception in that contest, but he had 4 other passes that were dropped by Green Bay defensive backs. He could have very easily had a 4 or 5 interception contest in that game, and they would have obviously lost that game because they only won it by 3 with all the advantages I've just talked about. Hey, last week they run for $176 as a team on the ground. Hey, doing that against Seattle's one thing. Doing that against Green Bay is a whole different story. They held Michael Turner to 39 rushing yards last week. Bottom line is, if the Packers slow down that Bears running game at all, then all of a sudden the onus of the offense falls on Cutler's shoulders, and whether he's taking 3 and 4 step dropbacks or 6 and 7 traditional step dropbacks, the guy still reads defenses incorrectly, and sometimes even when he reads them correctly, he's going to try to force passes. I don't believe that if he forces a couple of passes, and there's no reason to think he won't in this particular football game because he's done it in every game in his NFL career. If he does that, I just don't think Green Bay's going to let those chances slip away like they did in that September Monday night football game. And Mike McCarthy's been a great road coach at Green Bay, 28-14 against the spread when they play outside of Lambeau Field. So, I'm going to have to go with Green Bay on this one. 5 receiver sets, empty sets, that's going to shake things up a little bit for Chicago's defense, and a secondary that had problems late in the season against decent wideouts. I got it back here in Rodgers and Green Bay, guys.
One note before we go to Al. Scott, you brought up the stats, the penalty yardage in the previous meeting. That crew is working this game. So
makeup time.
It'll be interesting, and this is very interesting because we get into tendencies and angles. Al has that phenomenal database. Coaches do that too in the NFL. They actually, they know who's working the games once they find out what the crew assignments are, and they actually will handicap on their own in terms of tendencies that officiating crews have. So it'll be interesting to see how McCarthy may game plan just a little bit differently, knowing the officiating crew that's in the game. I think that may actually be a little bit of an advantage for Green Bay because we saw what happened.
Let me make a quick point on that also.
Incredibly lopsided penalty yardage.
Let me make a quick point on that also, because human nature is to, all of a sudden it's been magnified all week long. Everybody's talked about the horrible job, or the horrible amount of calls, I should say, against Green Bay. 18 penalties to only 5 for Chicago, and it's almost a human tendency to almost want to make up subconsciously for that. So I do agree. I think that helps Green Bay if it helps anything at all.
Yeah, but let's be honest here. Green Bay did commit those penalties in that ballgame. That wasn't bad that wasn't bad refereeing. That was just bad execution by Green Bay. But I mean, hey, thank God Johnny Greer's done. You guys remember the old Johnny Greer ref? I mean, I think his middle name was Holding. But it's. He was my favorite old-time ref, but and maybe he still refs today. I can't remember. But this is a big play for me. I talked earlier about my Vegas strip moves. I'm giving it away for free for this weekend, and this game is involved in that Vegas strip move package. So I'll just stay out of the discussion on this ball game, guys.
All right, we're going to do the best bets in just a second. Let me tell you what I've got going this weekend. I've actually been promoting this special all week long. This will be the last chance to get in on this at this price. And it's going to cost a little more, but you're also going to be on board for a long time. It's $79. You're going to get every action play I've got in basketball right through the Final Four. So you're going into early April, and you get all my action plays in basketball. They're doing well. Also, you're going to get a big window play. Those are very high-level plays. They sell for as much as a nickel a piece. And, boy, have those been on fire. The day you sign up for this special, you get one of those. If I have one of those games that day, you get that free. If I don't have one, you'll get the next one that I have free. Obviously, it's a big Saturday schedule. I'm going to have a window play. No question about that. Just to tell you how those plays have done this week. A Tuesday, Nebraska, easy winner against Colorado. Wednesday at James Madison plus the points. They got the money against Old Dominion. Very easy winner on Thursday. Washington State minus the points at home against the apparently overmatched Herb Sendek in Arizona State. Herb Sendek probably not going to be there much longer, by the way. They are not happy in Sun Devil country right now. So the window plays doing extremely well. You're going to get all the action plays right through the tournament. So that's a ton of stuff right there. Plus the big window play that I've got going on Saturday. It's all included, $79. Make the phone call. Make the commitment to winning, and you'll do exactly that. 1-866-841-1665 is the number to call. 1-866-841-1665. Let's get to the best bets. And Al, start it off with you. And again, recap what you've got going for a special this weekend as well.
Sure. Well, first, my best bet, easily, the Kansas Jayhawks for this show. Got a great offer, guys. It's my Vegas strip moves. As I mentioned, they got off to that 14-0 start this football season. Then it was, I think, 28-5. I think for the season they ended up 80%. And I'm going to do a football, basketball two-step. Saturday and Sunday, absolutely free. NBA, college basketball, pro football, you get it all, and it's free. 866-896-1628. We set a record this season with the amount of people who called throughout the season for those Vegas strip move plays. Let's do it again this weekend. Make the call, 866-896-1628. Best bet, easily, Kansas Jayhawks.
How about you, Scott?
I'm going to go ahead and, since we're moving into college basketball and NFL is almost wrapped up, I'm going to go with the Syracuse Orange as my top play of the two college basketball games that we talked about. Just a great deal of action going on at Smash Mouth Sports. We've had this incredible run once again in college basketball. We've had a real nice run in the NFL after winning the big divisional round game of the year last week with the Bears. 58% winners for the season on NFL Sundays. What we're going to do is a big Smash Mouth bundle going starting on Saturday. We're going to have our next college basketball three-play package as we look to make it 10 straight winning three-packs, 20-7 with the 27 sides that have been released in those three-packs. And as I mentioned, I'm a big road. I like to look around and look for value with road teams, and they're normally either very small favorites or very small dogs that I'll play. And those Road Warrior Wipeouts are currently on a 24-9 run with their last 33, 7-1 with the last 8. You're going to get this Road Warrior Wipeout game of the year in college baskets. My next college basketball three-pack, which goes on Saturday, and Sunday's AFC Conference Championship game of the year. It's all for just $20 at Smash Mouth Sports. Just make the call on Saturday, 1-866-896-1627. 866-896-1627.
Well, Jim, I guess all people need to do is spend one thin $10 bill with you this weekend, and they're gonna be pretty happy with what happens with that $10 investment.
Well, they can send it in pennies if they want. We accept all forms of payment, but for $10 you get 10 days of executive and inner circle winners. Come on, that's how inexpensive can it be? You're talking about thousands of dollars worth of action in football and basketball to the end of the month, and it includes a pair of high roller releases. That's $1,000 value right there, and that's a free bonus. Just make the call, 1-866-841-1655 for 10 days of executive and inner circle winners. And, before we sign off, I want to bring something up that we didn't talk about. I think that the listeners want to hear this kind of stuff. Right now I'm looking at a number out there that shows the odds to win the Super Bowl. And right now the Packers are plus 155, and the next line is Pittsburgh plus 185. So at this point, with all four teams still in action, the Packers are the favorite. But if the Packers were to meet the Steelers, what do you guys make the line? Because the AFC had been the favorite going into the Patriots losing last week.
If the Packers meet the Steelers, I'm going to make the Packers -3.
I would say that's about the right number. I think Green Bay, if Green Bay, assuming Green Bay wins, because obviously Green Bay can't be the favorite in the Super Bowl if they don't win, it means the momentum is still intact. It means they will probably, in all likelihood, with this number being as short as it is with Chicago, they'll probably have covered the spread in that game, which means backers will continue to be collecting cash. I think that's going to influence the number. It actually I would not be shocked if it comes 3.5 on Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay's obviously going to be the favorite. It's just a matter of how high. The best team in the league this year was New England. The second best team was Green Bay from a power rating standpoint. Green Bay's the favorite. It's just, again, it's going to come down to how they play this weekend and where the odds makers want to balance the action. But, lately they've been moving the Super Bowl toward those key numbers of 3 and 7 and nothing would shock me, but Green Bay's definitely going to be the favorite over any team they play.
If you make it less than 3,
game, I think it'd be one of those games where they'd leave it at 3 and just move the money line, -1. You can't do that in the Super Bowl because they want, obviously you got everybody's betting the game, so I think the number could fluctuate a half point here and there.
Well, if you make the number less than 3, you're going to get more one-sided action on the favorite than if you make it 3.5 that you're going to get on the underdog. So I think it's just got to come 3. That's what I would make it.
But I want to raise an issue for a discussion then, because it's an interesting point. It's the biggest bet of the year for all bookmakers, and the very last thing they want is a push, because then they don't collect anything.
That's why I'm saying 3.5.
The interesting thing might be that, depending on, maybe the bookmakers would be incentivized to make it 3.5, or maybe it's, 4.5 or whatever the number is, because there's always, in an NFL game, there's always a decent chance it lands 3, and the last thing these guys don't want is a payday.
Well, look,
we know that we're talking about the two teams that are expected to win, but there's a possibility that either the Jets or the Bears, or possibly the Jets and the Bears, end up there. So, and you're looking at the Bears plus 545 and the Jets plus 425. So that's interesting there in itself, because you got both about the same type of underdog this week, but there's quite a big difference in the money line going into the Super Bowl to win the Super Bowl. So you'd actually be making the Jets the favorite over the Bears in the Super Bowl if they met, according to these numbers. And there's a lot of people that disagree, and that I've talked to that feel that even if the Steelers and Packers meet up, because of the pedigree of the Steelers, the fact that they've been there, because they have a better running game, and they have a very strong defense, and they have Roethlisberger, who's won a couple Super Bowls, you might see Pittsburgh getting more of the money than you think, because this is a brand new team coming in there with a brand new quarterback. And I understand what you're saying, Al, about power ratings, but the public perception does go a little bit to the team that's already won it.
If the number comes out pretty, juicy, let's say, for Green Bay on Sunday, if it's a Pittsburgh Green Bay, and if they're giving Pittsburgh way too much credit for having, Super Bowl titles, I will make one of the largest bets of my life on Green Bay.
Yeah,
if I could lay anything less than a field goal,
I can see it. You're salivating.
But Jim, I can understand what you're saying. Jim, because you have more names on the side of the Pittsburgh Steelers that the public are going to be enamored with than you are with Green Bay. Green Bay, you got Aaron Rodgers. Pittsburgh, you got Polamalu. You got Roethlisberger. You got Tomlin. You got the same old Pittsburgh identity for the past 35 years. It's just one of those things where I can see what you're saying, where maybe the smaller bettors, the average bettor is going to come in and say, ooh, I can get 3 points with Pittsburgh, I'm going to jump on it. But I have to agree with Al. If it's less than 3, maybe if it's 3, it won't. I don't see how I could have my money on anything but Green Bay in that contest.
And Scott, your two favorite words are matchup nightmare. I mean, can you just see Mike McCarthy spreading out the Steelers, in that ball game? I mean,
empty sets, 5 receiver sets. Oof.
Look,
that's the thing.
If it won't be, I'm convinced it won't be 3. I'm just assuming Green Bay Pittsburgh for a moment for the sake of argument. I think it's got to be 3.5, because remember, this is, again, it's not a regular season game. And what happens? The tendency is now crystal clear as far as how Super Bowl bets are made. People don't bet the underdog plus the points. They go money line, even though they're getting robbed. In this Super Bowl, the underdog bettors bet the money line, even though there's no value. They don't know enough about that. They'll see plus 120 or whatever. And they're going to take that. And that means the favorite always gets an extra half point. That's what's happened in the last few Super Bowls. The odds makers know what the tendencies of the bettors are. So they will push, even if it's not the right number. They're going to make Green Bay a half point more favorite. You can't put a 3 out there. It wouldn't make sense.
Dave, but Dave, a clarification. You said there's actually, the true value is the money line. What they've done a lot of times in past years is juice the point spread because of a lot of the runaway scores. But the money line doesn't get juiced. The point spread is what gets juiced.
I think the money line does. I think you go back 2 years ago, and Arizona was only +1. I don't remember what they were, but they were much lower than they should have been based on the money. The money line should have been well over $2 in that game against. No.
The point spread should have been lower. The money line was correct. The point spread is what should have been lower.
Not based on where the point spread was.
No, but the point spread got juiced. The point spread was that's my point. They don't juice the money line; they juice the point spread.
Well, whatever. I know one thing: the bookmakers know exactly what we talk about tendencies of the teams all the time. The bookmakers know how to handicap the bettors too, and so they don't always put a true number up on a game like the Super Bowl. They'll put up a number that's going to put them in the best position to make as much money as they possibly can. Jim, these guys do know what they're doing.
Well, the good thing we got going on here is we got 4 teams that are kind of under the same little umbrella. There's not much of a difference spreading out. I mean, I haven't given very much credit to Rex Ryan and the New York Jets because I think his bravado and his big mouth has turned me off a little bit. But the bottom line is the guy has done a good job coaching. He's played 5 games on the road in the last 2 years, and he's won 4 of them. I think it's 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6. And he's done a great job. He's gotten them into the championship game 2 straight years. And even though he's got a young quarterback who not everybody thinks that much of, and the guy's done a good job. And even today, we haven't even mentioned their name. As a possibility of getting there.
I'll tell you what, you talked about the job Rex Ryan did. How about last week when he just had that incredible defensive game plan, he and his staff, for Tom Brady. They rushed from the interior. They didn't waste any time coming from the ends. They just came right up the gut, and that's how you beat Tom Brady if you can bust through that interior offensive line because he is the epitome of a pocket passer. Now, what I'm looking forward to, I love the game within the game. I cannot wait to see what Rex Ryan and staff has planned for Big Ben because if you rush from the interior, you're putting Big Ben in his comfort zone. He loves to roll outside of the pocket and look for guys while he's still on the move. So I can't wait to see this blitz that's probably going to come from the outside, or maybe Rex Ryan's going to have to dial it down and not blitz as much. It's going to be a great game plan to watch right from the opening kickoff. It'll be a completely different defensive game plan for Big Ben than it was for Tom Brady.
All right. They played a few weeks ago, and the Jets actually beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, but Polamalu didn't play in that game, and he's a big difference maker, and he's going to, if he can stay healthy, he's going to shut down the middle where Sanchez completed a lot of his passes last time. It's a very interesting situation.
He's here.
That's an interesting.
A lot of the things, the Super Bowl, if it came back, let's go back to the Packers against Steelers, it really comes down to what happens in these games. If one of these games is a blowout, it's going to push the public in a different direction. So if we're looking at a 30-7 victory over here and a 17-16 victory over here, the lines are going to change quite dramatically off of that. It's going to be very interesting. I can't wait till Sunday.
Jim, I didn't get.
And by the way, before we sign off,
we're not signing off yet. I got to select my best bet. You didn't give your best bet.
No, we're going to skip you. We're not going to even talk about you. but okay, go give your best bet. Then I want to say something.
No. What's your best bet?
No, didn't I already do that?
No.
Oh, I didn't do that. I'm sorry. Texas and Kansas over the total. I love this game to go over. You're going to see a lot of points here.
All right. I have a couple of things.
And I talked about my special. But what I was going to bring up before you get is last week, a national TV, 60 Minutes, we saw a big gambler and a personal friend of mine, Bill Walters, come on the air and talk about gambling and what he does and what he thinks of Wall Street and et cetera, et cetera. But sports betting, for the most part, is extremely honest. And when it comes to comparing sports betting to Wall Street, there's no comparison. It's an outprice. Believe me. You just don't know what's going on in one. And in the other, it's nothing is 100% honest, of course. But sports betting is a much cleaner business.
Yeah, based on my experience, it is. I don't want any part of the stock market. Okay, here's the thing. Number one, before I get to my best bet, I have come to the conclusion that I figured out why Rex Ryan is so fascinated with his wife's feet. It's because he hasn't seen his own in years. Okay? He's looking at that's my observation.
That's classic.
I will take the Packers because I've been on them. I got to tell you, I like the total better than the side, but you're going to have to call to find out about that. But as far as the side goes, I think the Packers continue their run and they get past the Bears and go to the Super Bowl. The offer is $79, and this is the last chance to get this because I change the offer every week. $79, you're on board right through the NCAA championship game in early April. All my action plays in basketball, that's a lot of plays, all right? Plus, I've got a big window play, and those have been on fire right now. A big window play on the Saturday schedule. You'll get that free of charge as a bonus. It's worth more than $79. I can guarantee you that. 1-866-841-1665. 1-866-841-1665. Make the call and get serious about winning. Anybody got some closing thoughts here?
Yeah, I did a show picking up on what Jim was saying. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I did a show as we're getting ready for the wild card round, and it was either I do some of these morning shows, and I'm talking real early before the sun comes up. Either Philly, Des Moines, or Chicago. Those are my 3 morning shows. One of them asked me, do you feel like what you're doing? Do you feel like sports gaming, that gambling in general is immoral? And I said, heck yeah, I would never play Wall Street.
I'm not going to sit here and tell my personal story, but. I can tell you what my experience with Wall Street. Let's just say I'm glad my winning percentage is not the same in sports betting as it was on Wall Street because it wouldn't be good for me or my customers. I'll take sports betting anytime. And by the way, you can do your own research and come up with a better opinion, I believe, in sports betting than you ever can in Wall Street. But I don't know. That's my feelings on that. I know.
Yeah, the best one
I think ought to be illegal.
Yeah, I'll say this, Dave. The best way to compare Wall Street and sports is that all the games are televised in sports, and nothing's out in the open with Wall Street.
That's very true.
Yeah,
very true.
We will do this again on Monday, so make sure and come back on our weekday shows. They're a lot shorter. They're basically about 10 or 15 minutes. We get into a couple of games and tell you about what we've got going as well. But we hope you enjoy this weekend edition where we get into detail a little bit more. Take advantage of the offers that are out there from all of us. It's a good chance to make some money and have some fun with these games. That's what it's all about. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. For all the guys, I'm Dave. See you later.
Good luck, everybody.